Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of English Story Podcast. I'm Mark, and I'm here with the always insightful and compassionate Hope. Today, we're tackling a topic that's incredibly important, but often misunderstood: social anxiety. Let me start with a question. Have you ever found yourself feeling nervous or awkward in social situations? Maybe it's walking into a party where you don't know anyone, speaking up in a meeting, or even something as simple as making small talk with a stranger. If you've ever felt your heart race, your palms sweat, or your mind go blank in these moments, you're not alone. I've been there too. I remember one time I was supposed to introduce myself in a big group meeting. It was just a 30-second intro, but in my mind, it felt like the most intimidating thing in the world. My heart was pounding. I couldn't focus on what others were saying. And when it was my turn, I stumbled over my words and felt embarrassed for the rest of the meeting.
That's such a common experience, Mark, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. Social anxiety is something so many of us deal with, but we often feel like we're the only ones struggling. It's not just about being shy or introverted. Social anxiety can be a persistent and overwhelming fear of judgment, embarrassment, or rejection in social situations. And the truth is, it can impact so many areas of life. It might hold you back from making friends, pursuing career opportunities, or even enjoying simple moments like going to a party or speaking up in a group. But here's the good news. While social anxiety is challenging, it's also manageable. You're not stuck feeling this way forever, and there are tools and strategies that can help.
That's right, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. In this episode, we're going to cover 3 key things. 1. What social anxiety is. We'll break it down so you can better understand how it works and why it feels so overwhelming. 2. Why it happens. From biological factors to life experiences, we'll look at what causes social anxiety and why it's more common than you might think. 3. Most importantly, how to cope and thrive. We'll share practical strategies you can start using today to feel more confident and in control in social situations.
Whether you're someone who struggles with social anxiety or you want to support a friend or a loved one who does, this episode is for you. We're going to keep it real, relatable, and packed with actionable advice.
Absolutely. And remember, if you're feeling overwhelmed by social anxiety, you're not alone. So many people are navigating the same challenges, and it's okay to take small steps toward feeling better.
So grab a coffee or tea, settle in, and let's talk about how to understand and overcome social anxiety. By the end of this episode, we hope you'll feel a little more equipped to face those moments that used to feel so intimidating.
Let's get started. All right, let's start by answering the big question. What is social anxiety? Social anxiety is more than just feeling shy or nervous in social situations. It's an intense, persistent fear of being judged, embarrassed, or rejected. People with social anxiety often worry about saying the wrong thing, looking awkward, or being perceived negatively. For example, imagine you're at a party. Instead of enjoying yourself and chatting with people, you might be constantly analyzing how you're coming across. Did I just say something stupid? Are they judging me? Am I being weird? Those thoughts can feel relentless and overwhelming, to the point where you might avoid the party altogether.
Exactly. And that's one of the key differences between social anxiety and regular shyness. Shyness is a personality trait. It's about feeling reserved or introverted in certain situations. Social anxiety, on the other hand, goes beyond that. It can interfere with your ability to function and enjoy everyday activities, like attending a meeting, ordering food at a restaurant, or even making a phone call.
Right. And it doesn't just affect your mind, it shows up in your body too. People with social anxiety might experience physical symptoms like sweating, racing heartbeat, shortness of breath, nausea, shaking hands or voice. It's not just in your head. These are real physical responses to a perceived threat, even if that threat is just introducing yourself in a group.
Exactly. And social anxiety is more common than you might think. It's estimated that about 15 million adults in the US alone experience social anxiety disorder. That's nearly 7% of the population. So if you're dealing with social anxiety, know that you're not alone. Many people share similar struggles, even if it feels isolating.
One thing that's important to understand is that social anxiety isn't about being weak or overly sensitive. It's a real condition with real effects on your mental, emotional, and physical well-being. And the good news is it's treatable. With the right tools and strategies, people can manage their social anxiety and lead fulfilling, connected lives.
Exactly. And here's something else to remember. Social anxiety doesn't define you. It's something you experience, but it's not who you are. We're here to help you understand it, normalize it, and most importantly, learn how to navigate it.
In the next part of the episode, we'll dive into why social anxiety happens. Understanding its causes is the first step to overcoming it. So stick with us. You won't want to miss this. Now that we know what social anxiety is, let's talk about the next big question. Why does it happen? Why do some people struggle with social anxiety while others don't?
That's such an important question, Mark. And the answer isn't always simple. Social anxiety can come from a combination of factors: biological, psychological, and environmental. Let's break it down.
Biological factors. First, there's a biological component. Research shows that some people are more sensitive to anxiety because of their brain chemistry. For example, the part of the brain called the amygdala, which processes fear and threats, can be overactive in people with social anxiety.
Right? An overactive amygdala means your brain is constantly on high alert, interpreting social situations as more threatening than they really are. This can make even normal interactions like starting a conversation feel overwhelming.
There's also a genetic factor. Studies have shown that if someone in your family struggles with anxiety, you're more likely to experience it too. It doesn't mean you're destined to have social anxiety, but your genes can make you more predisposed to it.
Environmental factors. But biology isn't the whole story. Our environment plays a huge role, too. For example, if you grew up in a household where you were criticized or shamed for making mistakes, you might develop a fear of judgment that carries over into adulthood.
Or if you've had negative social experiences, like being bullied, rejected, or embarrassed in the past, those memories can stick with you. Your brain learns to associate social situations with pain or humiliation, making you want to avoid them in the future.
Even things like cultural norms can contribute. In some cultures, there's a lot of pressure to save face or avoid making mistakes in public, which can increase social anxiety.
Psychological factors. Then there's the psychological side. Many people with social anxiety struggle with perfectionism. They hold themselves to impossibly high standards, thinking they have to say the perfect thing or behave perfectly in every situation.
Exactly. That fear of not measuring up creates a constant cycle of self-doubt. For example, you might avoid speaking up in a meeting because you're afraid of saying something wrong. But the more you avoid, the more your anxiety grows, and the harder it becomes to face those situations.
It's almost like your brain is trying to protect you from embarrassment, but instead it keeps you stuck in a pattern of avoidance.
An evolutionary perspective. One last piece to consider is the evolutionary perspective. In ancient times, being part of a group was essential for survival. If you were rejected by your tribe, it could literally mean life or death.
That's such an interesting point, Hope. Our brains are still wired that way, even though the stakes aren't nearly as high today. Fear of rejection feels so intense because, on a primal level, our brains see it as a threat to our safety.
Right. Understanding this can help you be kinder to yourself. Social anxiety isn't a flaw or weakness, it's your brain trying to protect you. The key is learning how to calm those signals and reframe your perspective.
That's exactly what we're going to cover next. We'll share actionable strategies to help you manage social anxiety and feel more confident in social situations. Stick with us. Now that we've explored what social anxiety is and why it happens, let's get to the part everyone's been waiting for: how to manage it. Social anxiety can feel overwhelming, but the good news is there are strategies you can use to cope and even thrive in social situations. Let's break them down.
Strategy 1: reframe negative thoughts. Let's start with reframing your thoughts. Social anxiety often comes from a cycle of negative thinking. For example, you might walk into a room and think, everyone is judging me, or I'm going to say something stupid. These thoughts aren't just unhelpful, they're usually not even true.
Exactly. One way to reframe these thoughts is to challenge them with evidence. Ask yourself, is there any real proof that people are judging me? More often than not, the answer is no. Most people are too focused on themselves to scrutinize you.
Another great technique is to replace negative thoughts with neutral or positive ones. Instead of thinking, I'm going to embarrass myself, try, I might feel nervous, but I can handle this. It's all about shifting your mindset to something more realistic and empowering.
Strategy 2. Start small and build confidence. The next strategy is to start small. If big social situations feel too overwhelming, begin with manageable ones. Think of it as building a muscle. You don't start with heavy weights, you start light and work your way up.
For example, instead of diving into a big networking event, you might start by saying hello to a neighbor or making small talk with a cashier. These small successes can build your confidence over time, making larger social interactions feel less daunting.
I love that. It's also helpful to set specific, achievable goals. Maybe your goal for the day is to ask one question during a meeting or share one thought in a group discussion. Every step forward counts, no matter how small it seems.
Strategy 3, focus on the other person. Another powerful strategy is to shift your focus outward. Social anxiety often stems from being hyper-aware of yourself, how you look, what you're saying, or how you're being perceived. Instead, try focusing on the person you're talking to.
That's a great tip. One way to do this is by becoming genuinely curious about the other person. Ask them questions, listen to their answers, and engage with what they're saying. Not only does this take the pressure off you, but it also makes the interaction more meaningful.
Exactly. And here's the secret. People love to feel heard. When you focus on the other person, they're less likely to notice your nerves, and you're more likely to enjoy the conversation.
Strategy 4. Practice relaxation techniques. Let's talk about relaxation techniques. Social anxiety often triggers physical symptoms like sweating, a racing heart, or shortness of breath. Learning to calm your body can make a huge difference.
One of my favorite techniques is deep breathing. Before or during a social situation, try this. Inhale for 4 counts, hold your breath for 4 counts, and exhale for 4 counts. Repeat this a few times to help calm your nervous system.
Another technique is grounding. For example, you can try the 5-4-3-2-1 method. Name 5 things you see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you taste. This brings your focus to the present moment and helps reduce anxiety.
Strategy 5, seek support. Finally, don't be afraid to seek support. Social anxiety can feel isolating, but you don't have to go through it alone. Talking to a trusted friend, family member, or therapist can make a huge difference.
Therapy, especially cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is one of the most effective ways to manage social anxiety. It helps you identify and challenge negative thought patterns while building healthier habits.
And if therapy feels like a big step, you can also look into online support groups or resources. Sometimes just hearing from others who've been through similar experiences can be incredibly validating.
Those are our top strategies. Reframe your thoughts, start small, focus on others, practice relaxation techniques, and seek support. Remember, managing social anxiety is a journey, not a quick fix.
Exactly. It's about taking small, consistent steps and being kind to yourself along the way. You're stronger than you think, and with time and practice, you can learn to navigate social situations with more confidence.
Coming up next, we'll share an interactive exercise to help you start applying these strategies right away. Stick around. Before we dive into today's vocabulary, let's do a quick mental check-in. Think about the last social situation that made you feel nervous or anxious. Got it? Now, as we go through these words, see if you can connect each one to your experience. This will help you understand not just the definitions, but also how these words relate to you personally.
Key vocabulary words. Let's start with our first word, social anxiety. Definition: a fear of social situations where you might be judged, embarrassed, or rejected. Example: her social anxiety made her avoid speaking up in meetings, even though she had great ideas. Connection: think about a time when you felt this way. How did it affect your actions?
The next word is perfectionism. Definition: the need to appear flawless or perform perfectly, often leading to fear of failure or judgment. Example: his perfectionism caused him to rehearse his introduction a dozen times before the event. Connection: does your social anxiety ever stem from trying to meet impossible standards?
Our third word is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. Definition: a type of therapy that helps you change negative thought patterns and develop healthier behaviors. Example: through CBT, she learned to reframe her anxious thoughts and feel more confident in social situations. Connection: have you ever tried to challenge a negative thought? That's a key part of CBT.
Next, let's talk about grounding techniques. Definition: methods to calm anxiety by focusing on the present moment and your surroundings. Example: she used the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique to ground herself before giving her speech. Connection: if you've ever felt overwhelmed, grounding techniques can be a lifesaver. Which one could you try next time?
Finally, we have exposure. Definition: gradually facing your fears in small, manageable steps to reduce anxiety over time. Example: he used exposure by starting with short conversations at work before attending large social events. Connection: think about one small step you could take toward facing a social fear.
So, there you have it. Social anxiety, perfectionism, CBT, grounding techniques, and exposure. These are more than just words. They're tools and concepts that can help you better understand and manage social anxiety.
And remember, the more you familiarize yourself with these ideas, the easier it becomes to apply them in real life. So, which word or strategy resonated most with you? Reflect on it, and let's keep building on what you've learned. Wow, what a meaningful conversation today. Let's take a moment to recap the key takeaways from this episode on social anxiety.
First, we talked about what social anxiety is. It's more than just shyness. It's a fear of judgment, embarrassment, or rejection in social situations that can affect your daily life.
Then we explored why social anxiety happens, whether it's due to biological factors like an overactive amygdala, past experiences like bullying, or psychological traits like perfectionism. Understanding the cause is a powerful first step in addressing it.
And of course, we shared strategies to help you cope and thrive. Remember: 1. Reframe negative thoughts, challenge those what-if scenarios, and replace them with realistic, empowering ones. 2. Start small. Take manageable steps to build your confidence. 3. Focus on others. Shift your attention outward to make social interactions feel less overwhelming. 4. Use relaxation techniques. Try deep breathing or grounding exercises to calm your mind and body. 5. Seek support. Reach out to friends, family, or even a therapist to share your journey.
And don't forget the vocabulary we covered today: social anxiety, perfectionism, CBT, grounding techniques, and exposure. These words represent tools and concepts that can guide you toward progress.
Here's our final thought for you. Social anxiety doesn't define who you are. It's just one part of your story. And with small steps and consistent effort, you can take control of it. You're stronger than you realize.
Absolutely. So here's your challenge for this week. Pick one strategy or tip we shared today and put it into practice. Whether it's grounding yourself before a meeting or reframing a negative thought, remember that every small step counts.
And as always, we'd love to hear from you. What resonated with you today? What strategies have worked for you in managing social anxiety? Share your thoughts in the comments or send us a message. We're all in this together.
Thank you so much for joining us on English Story Podcast. If you found this episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe and share it with someone who might benefit. And be sure to tune in next week for another conversation that inspires and empowers.
Take care, everyone. You've got this.
See you next time.